year was 2347, and humanity had been quiet for a very long time. Admiral Park Doan stood on the observation deck of Earth's orbital station, watching the blue planet turn slowly beneath him. He was 53 years old, with gray hair at his temples and calm eyes that had seen many things. For 30 years, he had served in Earth's defensive fleet. For 30 years, he had followed orders, kept peace, and watched humanity bow its head to the Galactic Council. It had been 120 years since first contact. Humanity had been young then, excited and afraid. They had met the Volari first, tall beings with pale skin and eyes like black stones. The Volari had smiled and offered friendship. They had offered a place in the Galactic Council, a community of 12 species that ruled the known galaxy. But friendship came with rules. Humanity could join, yes. But they were new. They were small. They must accept restrictions. Their military could not grow beyond 200 ships. They could not expand beyond approved territories. They must pay tribute in resources and labor. In exchange, they would receive protection, trade, and technology. Earth's leaders had agreed. What choice did they have? The Council had thousands of ships. Humanity had barely reached their own moon a few centuries before. They were children compared to species that had traveled between stars for 10,000 years. So humanity became good citizens. They worked hard. They traded. They built colonies on approved worlds. They followed every rule. And the Council looked at them and saw exactly what they expected to see: a harmless, useful, obedient species. They called humans the soft ones. Admiral Park had heard that name many times. He had smiled politely when alien officers said it to his face. He had nodded when Council inspectors checked his ships and laughed at their small weapons. He had stayed silent when other species pushed human merchants aside in trading stations. But inside, he remembered something his grandfather had told him: a river that flows quietly is not weak. It is patient, and patient water can cut through stone. On the other side of the galaxy, Ambassador Yunjia sat in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. She was 60 years old, small and thin, with silver hair pulled back in a simple style. She had spent 40 years in this hall, speaking for Earth, asking for fairness, requesting equal rights. 40 years of polite refusals. Today, she sat in her assigned seat, far in the back. Below the raised platforms where the senior species sat, the Volari were at the highest level, their representative Elder Vorath looking down at everyone with bored contempt. Below them sat the Dren, the Kothani, the Marashi, and 7 other species. All of them older than humanity. All of them more important. Ambassador Yoon had asked for voting rights 847 times. She had been denied 847 times. Humans are too young, they always said. Perhaps in another century? Perhaps when you have proven yourselves. She wondered what proof they wanted. Humanity had given everything asked of them. They had been perfect members for 120 years. But it was never enough, far from both of them at the edge of human space. Captain Kong Taeho commanded a small patrol ship called the Hanggang. He was young, only 31, with sharp features and quick eyes. His ship was old and poorly armed, like all human military vessels. But he was proud of his crew and proud of his duty. On this day, his sensors detected something strange near the colony moon of Yongsong. Ships that should not be there. When he investigated, he found an alien mining operation digging into the moon's surface, extracting valuable minerals. The moon belonged to humanity. The mining was illegal. Captain Kong sent a report to Earth Command. He expected action. Instead, he received orders to withdraw and await Council judgment. The Council's judgment came 3 weeks later. The mining operation was a minor administrative error and would be reviewed at a future date. The aliens continued mining. No one stopped them. Captain Kong said nothing, but he remembered Ambassador Yoon heard about the incident. She filed a formal protest. Elder Vorath did not even read it. His assistant sent back a form response. Matter under review. No action required at this time. She filed it away with thousands of similar responses, and she remembered. Admiral Park received the full report. He looked at it for a long time. Then he made a secure call to a number very few people knew. On the other end, a voice answered, "Is it time?" The voice asked. "Not yet," Admiral Park said. "But soon. Keep building." Then came the day everything changed. The Galactic Council made an announcement. Directive 7 Alpha. The words were polite, wrapped in legal language. The meaning was clear. Human colonies in the outer reach must be abandoned. The Volari Dominion wanted that space for their own expansion. Humanity had 90 days to remove 4 million people from 3 worlds they had spent 80 years building. Ambassador. Yoon received the directive while sitting in her office. She read it twice. Then she read it a third time. Her hands did not shake. Her face did not change. But something inside her went very quiet and very cold. She had spent her life believing in diplomacy. She had believed that patience and good faith would eventually bring justice. She had believed the council could be fair. She did not believe that anymore, Admiral. Park received the directive aboard his flagship. He gathered his senior officers and showed them the document. No one spoke for a long time. "They want us to leave our homes, Commander No," Hannah said finally. She was his tactical officer, a woman of 40, with a mind like a computer. "They want us to abandon everything our people built." Admiral Park said. "Will we?" Admiral Park looked at her. Then he looked at all of them. These men and women who had served quietly for so long, who had smiled at insults and bowed to unfair rules. Who had waited? "Oh," he said. "We will not." On Earth, President Beek Sora read the directive in her private office. She was 65 years old, a former scientist who had become a politician out of duty rather than ambition. She had a kind face and gentle manner. But those who knew her well knew something else. She had a spine made of iron, and she never, ever backed down from what was right. She called an emergency meeting of Earth's leadership. Admirals, generals, ambassadors, scientists, and politicians gathered in a secure room beneath the Capitol. "They've given us 90 days, she said. "They expect us to run. They expect us to obey, as we always have." She paused and looked at each face in the room. "They are wrong." The galaxy was about to learn something important about humanity. The soft ones had never been soft. They had been waiting, and their patience had finally run out. The emergency meeting lasted 3 days. President Beek Sora did not sleep. Neither did anyone else. They talked, argued, planned, and talked some more. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to run and find new worlds far from the Council's reach. But in the end, they all agreed on one thing: they would not abandon their people. General Shinwoo was the first to speak about the secret. He was 70 years old, a soldier his entire life, with a face like carved wood and eyes that had seen war. He had kept a secret for longer than most of the people in the room had been alive. 80 years ago, he said, standing before a screen that showed empty space, our leaders made a decision. They signed the treaty. They limited our fleet to 200 ships. They followed every rule, pressed a button, and the screen changed. Now it showed shipyards hidden inside asteroids, factories buried beneath moons, warehouses full of weapons in the dark spaces between stars. But they also prepared for the day the rules would fail us. Now the room was silent. The treaty limited our declared fleet, General Shin continued. It said nothing about what we built in secret. Admiral Park Doan stepped forward. We have 3,000 combat ships hidden across human space. We have weapons the Council does not know exist. We have been building, training, and waiting for 80 years. He looked at President Beek. We are ready. President Beek closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, her decision was made. Prepare everything, she said, but we do not strike first. We give them a chance to be reasonable. If they choose war, they will have it. But the choice must be theirs. 3 days later, she addressed all of humanity. Every screen on Earth and every colony showed her face. She stood alone, wearing simple clothes, speaking in a calm voice. She did not threaten. She did not boast. She simply told the truth. The Galactic Council has ordered us to abandon our homes in the outer reach. 4 million of our people live on those worlds. They were born there. They built cities there. They raised children there. Those worlds are not just territory. They are home. She paused and looked directly into the camera. We will not leave. We will not abandon our people. This is not negotiable. If the Council wants our worlds, they will have to take them. And we will defend ourselves with everything we have. Across human space, people watched. On Earth, in orbital stations, on colony worlds near and far, they watched and they understood. The time for bowing was over. On the Council station, Ambassador Yunjaya requested an emergency session. Elder Vorith agreed, expecting her to beg for mercy or ask for more time. Instead, she stood before the Council and spoke without fear. For 120 years, humanity has been a faithful member of this Council. We have followed every rule. We have paid every tribute. We have asked only for fairness and been denied. Her voice was steady. Now you order us to abandon our homes so that the Valari can take what we built. You expect us to simply accept this because we are small and you are large. Elder Vorith laughed. You are small. You have 200 ships. We have thousands. This is not a negotiation, Ambassador. This is a notification. You will comply, or you will be made to comply. Ambassador Yoon did not flinch. Then let me notify you of something, Elder. Humanity will not comply. If you send ships to remove our people, we will resist. If you want war, you will have it. The council hall erupted in noise. No minor species had ever spoken this way. It was unthinkable. It was madness. Councillor. Mirren, a small being from a species called the Tavi, watched from her seat in the back. The Tavi had been council members for 300 years. They had been quiet and obedient, just like humans. They had seen 6 other species defiant like this. All 6 had been crushed. All 6 had faded away, their worlds taken, their people scattered. But something felt different this time. She could not explain it, but she felt it. Later that night, she made a secret call to Ambassador Yoon. They will destroy you, she said. The Valari have done this before. They crush any species that resists. I know, Ambassador Yoon replied. Then why? Why not simply leave and survive? Ambassador Yoon was quiet for a moment. Because survival without dignity is not survival. It is slow death. We would rather fight and lose than surrender and fade away. Councillor Mirren thought about her own people. The Tavi had survived for 300 years by being quiet and small. But they had also lost so much. Their pride. Their independence. Their future. Was that really better than fighting? If you resist, she said slowly, you will not be alone. There are others who feel as you do. Other small species. Other quiet voices. If humanity stands, we might stand with you. Then stand ready, Ambassador Yoon said. The storm is coming. The Council gave humanity a final ultimatum. Surrender the Outer Reach colonies within 30 days, or face enforcement action. There was no compromise. No negotiation. Just cold, simple arrogance. President Beek's response was equally simple. No. 500 warships, the finest in their fleet, commanded by Admiral Torvax. He was confident, almost bored. He had crushed rebellions before. Humans would be no different. Easier, probably. The soft ones had never fought anyone. We will arrive, they will surrender, and we will take their worlds, he told his officers. This will be finished in a day. His fleet jumped into the Outer Reach on a bright morning, local time. They emerged near the colony world of Yongsung, expecting to find frightened civilians and a few pathetic human patrol ships. Instead, they found Admiral Park Do-in waiting for them, his flagship Soul's Promise. Hung in space at the center of a formation that stretched across thousands of kilometers. Behind him, around him, rising from behind moons and drifting out of asteroid fields, came ship after ship. Human ships. Thousands of them. Admiral Torvax stared at his sensors. He checked them twice. 3 times. That's not possible, he whispered. They only have 200 ships. Commander Nohana, standing beside Admiral Park, allowed herself a small smile. They believed our reports for 80 years. They never thought to check. Admiral Park opened a communication channel. His face appeared on every Valari screen. Admiral Torvax, he said calmly, you have entered human space with hostile intent. You have 60 seconds to turn around and leave. If you do not, we will consider it an act of war and respond accordingly. Torvax was too shocked to respond for several seconds. When he finally found his voice, it was shaking with anger. You dare threaten the Council? You are nothing. You are insects. We will destroy you all. Admiral Park nodded slowly. I gave you a chance. Remember that. Closed the channel and looked at Commander No. All ships, he said quietly. Engage. The sky above Yongsang lit up with fire, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Battle of Yongsang began at dawn and lasted 6 hours. Admiral Torvax had expected an easy victory. He had 500 of the finest Valari warships, crews trained in 100 battles, weapons that had crushed a dozen rebellions. He thought he would simply sweep aside whatever pathetic resistance the humans offered, and take their worlds before lunch. He was wrong. The human fleet moved like nothing he had ever seen. They did not fight in the formal patterns that Council species used. They did not form neat lines and exchange fire like civilized beings. They swarmed. They split and merged. They attacked from angles that made no tactical sense until suddenly they made perfect sense. And by then, it was too late. Captain Kong Tai-ho led a strike squadron of fast ships. He was young, but he had trained for this his entire adult life. All of them had. While the Council thought humans were building merchant vessels and cargo ships, they had been building warriors. Squadron 3, follow me, he said into his communicator. We're going for the flagship. His ships dove through the chaos of battle, dodging fire, weaving between larger vessels. The Valari tried to track them, but human ships were smaller, faster, and more agile than anything they had faced before. Admiral Torvax watched his display with growing horror. Ships were vanishing from his fleet. Not one at a time, but in groups. The humans were targeting his formation's weak points with impossible accuracy. How are they coordinating this? He demanded. Their communications should be too slow for this level of coordination. His tactical officer had no answer. The truth was something the Valari had never considered. Humans had spent 80 years studying Council tactics. They knew every formation, every standard response, every weakness. They had designed their entire military to exploit what they knew. Commander, Nohana sat at her station aboard Sol's Promise, her eyes moving across dozens of screens at once. She was the mind behind the fleet's movements, coordinating thousands of ships through a system humans had developed in secret. Her commands went out in milliseconds, adjusting, adapting, responding to every Valari move before they could complete it. Enemy formation breaking on the left flank, she reported. Captain Kong's squadron is through. He has a clear approach to the flagship. Admiral Park nodded. Tell him to disable their engines. I want that ship intact. Captain Kong received the order and smiled grimly. You heard the Admiral? Weapons on the engine section only. Let's give them a limp to remember. Squadron concentrated fire on the Valaria flagship's massive engines. The shields held for 30 seconds, then 40, then cracked and failed. His weapons tore into the metal, ripping apart the machinery that let the great ship move. The flagship shuddered and went still. Admiral. Torvax stood on his bridge, alarm screaming around him, and watched his fleet die. Half his ships were already gone, destroyed or crippled. The others were scattered, confused, fighting alone against a human force that acted as one. Order a retreat, he said finally. The words tasted like poison in his mouth. All ships, fall back. Retreat to Council space. 160 ships fled. 340 did not. Admiral Park watched them go. He felt no joy, only a deep, heavy sadness. He had never wanted this. None of them had, but they had been given no choice. He opened a channel that he knew the retreating ships would hear. "Tell your council what happened here," he said. "Tell them what happens when you come for our homes. Tell them that the soft ones are soft no longer. And tell them this is only the beginning." The message spread across the galaxy like fire. Within hours, every species knew what had happened at Yongsung. The footage was everywhere. Human ships moving like deadly dancers. LRE vessels exploding, the mighty enforcement armada running away in shame. A minor species had defeated a senior council member in open battle. It had never happened before. In the entire history of the council, it had never happened. On 100 worlds, minor species watched the footage in their homes, in their workplaces, in their ships. They watched, and they began to hope. COUNCILOR, Mirren, called Ambassador Yoon that night. "My people are talking," she said. Her voice was shaking, but not with fear. With excitement. "They're saying if humans can fight, maybe we can too. Other species are reaching out to me. The Fenari, the Kothani dissidents, the Marashi separatists. They want to know if humanity will lead a coalition." Ambassador Yoon closed her eyes. This was what they had hoped for, and it was terrifying. "Tell them we will talk," she said. "Tell them to prepare. The council will not accept this defeat. They will come back with everything they have." On the council station, the Great Hall was in chaos. Elder Voreth stood before the assembled representatives, his pale face flushed with rage. "Is an outrage." He shouted, "A minor species attacked our fleet. They destroyed our ships. They humiliated us. We must respond with overwhelming force. We must crush them completely." Grand Arbiter Zelos, the ancient being who led the council, raised a withered hand for silence. He was older than any living member, old enough to remember when the council was formed, old enough to have seen species rise and fall. He had never seen anything like this. "We underestimated them," he said slowly. "That was our mistake. Now we must decide, do we commit to a war we might not win? Or do we find another way?" "There is no other way," Elder Vorath snarled. "If we show weakness now, every minor species will rebel. We must make an example of humanity." The debate raged for days. In the end, fear won over wisdom. The council voted to assemble a combined fleet, 2,000 ships, from 5 senior species, the largest military force in council history. They would gather at the Nexus system, then move against Earth itself. They would not just defeat humanity. They would erase them. Dr. Cho Yoonji was Earth's chief intelligence analyst. She was quiet and small, with thick glasses and a habit of mumbling to herself, but her mind was sharp as a blade, and her network of informants reached into every corner of the galaxy. She brought the news to President Beak personally. "They're gathering everything," she said, spreading data across the president's desk. 2,000 ships, maybe more. They plan to strike Earth directly. They want to end this in one blow. President Beak studied the information. 2,000 ships? Even with their hidden fleet, humanity could not match those numbers. "How long do we have?" 6 weeks, maybe 8. It takes time to move that many ships across the galaxy. 6 weeks? Not enough time to build more ships? Not enough time to train more crews, but maybe enough time to do something else. Admiral Park was called to the capital for an emergency meeting. He stood in the same secure room where the decision to fight had been made, facing the same leaders. "They're going to come at us with everything," he said. "If we fight them here at Earth, we might win, but the cost will be terrible. Our world could be damaged. Our people could die by millions. What alternative do we have?" General Shin asked. Admiral Park turned to the strategic display. He touched a point in council space, far from Earth, far from human territory. The Nexus system. That's where they're gathering. Right now, they're scattered. Ships arriving from different places. Uncoordinated. Vulnerable. He looked at President Beak. "Or we could go to them." The room was silent. "Hey, you want to attack council space?" President Beak said quietly. "I want to end this war before it destroys everything we're trying to protect. If we hit them at Nexus, before they're ready, we can break their fleet before it's a fleet. We can show them that nowhere is safe from us. And we can force them to negotiate. It was insane. It was brilliant. It was the most dangerous military operation humanity had ever attempted. President Beak thought about the 4 million people on Yongsang and the other outer-reach worlds. She thought about the children on Earth who had never known war. She thought about everything her people had, built in 120 years of peace. Then she thought about what would happen if they lost. Do it, she said. Operation Bright Dawn. Make them remember why they should never have pushed us. Admiral Park saluted and went to prepare. The soft ones were going to war. The galaxy held its breath. Word of Operation Bright Dawn spread through the human fleet in whispers. They were not going to wait for the enemy to come. They were going to strike at the heart of Council power. It was madness. It was suicide. It was exactly what humanity needed to do. Admiral Park Doan stood on the bridge of Sol's Promise and looked at the faces of his crew. They were afraid. He could see it in their eyes, in the way they held themselves, in the small trembles of their hands. But they were also determined. Every one of them had volunteered. Every one of them knew they might not come back. This fleet is the largest force humanity has ever assembled, he told them. 4,500 ships. Crews from Earth, from the colonies, from stations across human space. We are going to do something that has never been done before. We are going to attack the Council on their own ground. He paused, letting the words sink in. They think we are weak. They think we are afraid. They think we will break when we face their full power. They are wrong. His voice grew stronger. We are not weak. We are patient. We are not afraid. We are angry. And we will not break. We will show them what happens when they push peaceful people too far. We will show them the cost of their arrogance. Across the fleet, in ships large and small, crews listened to their admiral's voice. Some prayed. Some cried. All of them prepared. Captain Kong Tai-ho stood on the bridge of his new ship. After Young Sung, he had been promoted and given command of a strike carrier, twice the size of his old patrol vessel. His crew was young and eager, survivors of the first battle hungry for another chance to prove themselves. We're taking the vanguard position, he told them. We'll be the first ones through, the first to face whatever they have waiting. He smiled, though his heart was pounding. Sounds like fun, doesn't it? His crew laughed nervously. They loved him. They would follow him into hell. On Earth, the people waited. President Beak Sora had told them the truth. A great fleet was going to strike at the enemy before the enemy could strike at them. The battle would decide everything. If they won, humanity might survive. If they lost, nothing would protect Earth from revenge. Families gathered together. Temples and churches filled with people seeking comfort. Children asked questions their parents could not answer. The whole world looked up at the stars and wondered what was happening so far away. In Council space, the Nexus system bustled with activity. Ships arrived every hour from different species, gathering for the great invasion of human territory. The fleet was huge and growing, a forest of metal and fire that filled the space around the system's massive space station. But they were not ready. Ships from different species had never trained together. Their commanders argued over tactics and formations. Their communication systems were not fully linked. They were powerful. Yes. But they were not united. Grand Arbiter Zelos had come to Nexus personally to oversee the operation. He was ancient, his body supported by machines, but his mind was still sharp. He watched the fleet gather and felt uneasy. Should have attacked by now, he said to his aide. The humans should have tried to disrupt our gathering. Why are they waiting? His aide had no answer. No one did. Ambassador Yoon Jia was not on Earth. She had traveled in secret to a hidden location where representatives of a dozen minor species had gathered. Counselor Mirren had arranged the meeting, calling in favors and taking risks that could have meant her death. The beings around the table were small and frightened. The Fenari, the Tavi, the Orin, the Ves, and others. All of them had suffered under Council rule. All of them had dreamed of freedom. None of them had ever dared to act. The human fleet is moving now, Ambassador Yoon told them. In hours, they will attack Nexus. If they succeed, The Council's power will be broken. There will never be a better chance for all of us. Counselor Mirren leaned forward. What do you want from us? Not soldiers. Not ships. We know you don't have enough to spare. Ambassador Yoon looked at each of them in turn. We want you to refuse. When the Council calls for supplies, for workers, for support, say no. Slow everything down. Make excuses. Lose paperwork. Every delay helps us. Every small act of resistance adds up. They'll punish us, a Fenari representative said. If they win, they'll destroy us for helping you. Yes, Ambassador Yoon agreed. But if we win, you'll be free. Truly free for the first time in centuries. Is that worth the risk? The room was silent for a long moment. Then, one by one, the representatives nodded. They would help. They would resist. They would take the chance. The fleet jumped. 4,500 human ships crossed the vast distance between human space and the Nexus system in a series of faster-than-light leaps. Each jump brought them closer to the enemy. Each jump brought them closer to the battle that would decide everything. Admiral Park barely slept during the journey. He reviewed plans, studied reports, talked with his captains. Everything had to be perfect. One mistake could doom them all. Commander Nohana worked even harder. She was responsible for coordinating the entire fleet during battle, keeping thousands of ships working as one. She had trained for this her entire career, but the reality was overwhelming. She pushed the fear aside and focused on her screens, her calculations, her preparations. We'll arrive in 6 hours, she reported. The enemy fleet is still scattered. They don't know we're coming. Admiral Park nodded. Good, get some rest. You'll need it. She did not rest. Neither did anyone else at the edge of the Nexus system. The human fleet emerged from their final jump. For a moment, everything was quiet. Stars glittered in the darkness. The massive Council space station glowed in the distance. The enemy fleet was spread across thousands of kilometers. Ships of different species clustered in disorganized groups. Then the alarm started. On the station, Grand Arbiter Zello stared at his display in disbelief. Thousands of contacts. Human ships. Here, in Council space. It was impossible. It was happening. How? He whispered. How did they get here without being detected? Admiral Park's voice came over every channel, calm and clear. Grand Arbiter. Council forces. You came to destroy us. You came to take our worlds and scatter our people. We decided not to wait. Pause. Surrender now, and this ends without more death. Refuse, and we will break your fleet. The choice is yours. Zellos did not answer. He could not. The Council had never surrendered. The Council never surrendered. Even now, facing disaster, he could not speak those words. All ships, Admiral Park said quietly. Begin the attack. The human fleet surged forward. The first wave targeted the enemy ships that were most organized. The Valari and Dren vessels that had begun to form defensive positions. Captain Kong led his strike group straight at them, his ships screaming through space at impossible speeds. Break their formations. He ordered, don't let them link up. Weapons fire filled the darkness. Ships exploded. Metal tore and burned. The Council forces tried to respond, but they were confused, disorganized, unprepared. Human ships moved between them like wolves among sheep, striking and retreating, never staying still long enough to be targeted. Commander Nohana's voice was everywhere, guiding ships, adjusting tactics, responding to threats before they developed. She was the heart of the human fleet, the mind that held everything together. Group 7, shift to Sector 4. Group 12, reinforce Captain Kang. Group 20, pull back and reform. The battle raged for hours. The Council fleet tried to organize. They had the numbers. They had the firepower. But they could not match human speed, human coordination, human fury. Admiral Park watched from his bridge as the enemy fleet crumbled. He felt no triumph, Only exhaustion and relief and grief for every ship lost on both sides. It's working, Commander No said quietly. They're breaking, nodded. Keep pushing. Don't let them recover. On the station, Grand Arbiter Zelos watched his fleet die. 2,000 ships, the might of the Council, shattering before his eyes. He was old. He had seen many things, but he had never seen anything like this. Enough, he said finally. Call for ceasefire. We cannot win this. His aides stared at him. Grand Arbiter, we cannot surrender to humans. The Council has never faced this, Zelos interrupted. Everything has changed. We must accept that, or we will lose everything. He reached for the communication controls himself. Human fleet, this is Grand Arbiter Zelos. We request a ceasefire. We are prepared to negotiate. Admiral Park heard the words and closed his eyes. His hands were trembling. His heart was racing, but his voice was steady when he replied, Ceasefire accepted. All human ships hold position. No further attacks. The guns fell silent. The battle was over, and now the real work would begin. The negotiations lasted 3 weeks. They met on the Council station, in the same great hall where humanity had been ignored and dismissed for 120 years. But now the seating was different. Ambassador Yoon Jia did not sit in the back, in the shadows, looking up at her masters. She sat at the center table, facing Grand Arbiter Zelos as an equal. The hall was crowded. Representatives from every council species were there, along with delegates from the minor species coalition that had formed around humanity. The Valari sat in silence, their arrogance replaced by bitter defeat. The other senior species watched and waited. Uncertain of their future, Ambassador Yoon had prepared for this moment her entire life. We are not here to destroy the Council, she said on the first day. We are here to fix it. For centuries, this institution has served the strong at the expense of the weak. That ends today. She presented humanity's demands. They were not cruel. They were not vengeful. They were simply fair. Full voting rights for all species, regardless of size or age. No more forced relocations. No more tribute payments from minor species. An end to military restrictions on smaller civilizations. And the Valari Dominion would pay reparations to every species they had exploited. Elder Vorith protested. You cannot dictate terms to us. We are a senior species. We have rights. Ambassador Yoon looked at him calmly. You had rights. You used them to hurt others. Now, those rights are being changed. The debates were long and bitter. The Valari argued. The Dren complained. The Chthoni tried to find compromises that would preserve their privileges. But they all knew the truth. Humanity's fleet still surrounded the station. The human military had proven itself stronger than anyone had imagined. If negotiations failed, the war would resume and the Council would lose. President Bixora came for the final signing. She walked into the great hall wearing simple clothes, no different from any citizen of Earth. She had no bodyguards, no assistants, no display of power. She did not need them. Grand Arbiter Zelos met her at the center of the hall. He was tired, ancient, bent with age and defeat. But he still had enough pride to ask the question that had haunted him since Young-sung. How? He asked quietly. How did you hide your strength for so long? We watched you. We monitored you. We thought we knew everything about your species. President Beak smiled sadly. You saw what you wanted to see. You saw a small, weak species that would never dare to challenge you. So you never looked deeper. You never wondered what we were building in the dark places. You never imagined that the soft ones had teeth. We underestimated you. Yes, and you pushed us until we had no choice but to show you the truth. She paused. We did not want this war, Grand Arbiter. We wanted only to live in peace, to build our worlds, to raise our children. But when you threatened everything we loved, we discovered something about ourselves. We discovered that we would rather die fighting than live on our knees. Zelos was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Perhaps that is why your species will survive. You understand something we forgot long ago. Peace is not the same as surrender. The treaty was signed that afternoon. The new Galactic Compact, they called it. It reorganized the council completely. Senior species lost their special privileges. Minor species gained equal votes. The Valari Dominion was reduced to the same status as everyone else. Their power broken, their empire ended, and humanity became something new. Not rulers, not conquerors, but guardians. The other species looked to them for leadership, for protection, for hope. It was a responsibility that President Beak accepted with both pride and fear. "We will try to be worthy of this trust," she said in her final address to the galaxy. "We will make mistakes. We will sometimes fail. But we will always remember why we fought. Not for glory. Not for power. But for the simple right to exist as free people." Admiral Park Doan went home. The war was over, his duty complete. He had led humanity's fleet to victory, had watched thousands die, had made decisions that would echo through history. Now he wanted only peace. His family's farm was on Yongsung, one of the outer reach worlds they had fought to save. It was small, just a few acres of good soil near a river. His parents had built it when the colony was young. His grandparents were buried there. He hung up his uniform and put on simple clothes. He walked through fields of crops his ancestors had planted. He watched the sun set over mountains that humans had named. On a world that humans would keep, Captain Kong Tae-ho had been wounded in the final battle. A Valari ship had fired on his vessel during the ceasefire, one last act of spite. The shot had hit his bridge, killing 3 of his crew and badly injuring him. He spent 2 months in a medical station, rebuilding strength and learning to walk again. Commander Nohana visited him every week. She had been promoted to admiral after the war, the youngest in human history, but she still made time for her old comrade. "They want to give you a medal," she told him one day. "Biggest ceremony they've ever planned. You'll have to wear your dress uniform and make a speech." Kong groaned. "I hate speeches. Too bad. You're a hero. Heroes make speeches. I'm not a hero. I just did my job." No smiled. "That's what all the heroes say?" Ambassador Yoon Jia, retired after the treaty was signed. She had given her life to diplomacy, had spent decades fighting for fairness with words instead of weapons. Now she was tired. She wanted to rest. She moved to a small house on Earth, near the sea. She spent her days reading, gardening, watching the waves. Sometimes old colleagues would visit, asking her advice on some problem or another. She always helped. She could not turn away from service, even in retirement. One day, Counselor Mirren came to see her. The Tavi woman had become a leader of the Minor Species Coalition, working to build the new order they had all fought for. "We're making progress," Mirren said, sitting on Yoon's small porch, watching the sunset. "Slowly, but real progress. The old powers are adjusting. The new systems are taking hold. It's working. Did you ever doubt it would?" Yoon asked. Mirren laughed. "Every day. Every single day." She paused. "Do you ever regret it? The war, the death, all of it?" Yoon thought for a long time before answering. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret every life lost, but I do not regret what we achieved. Freedom is worth fighting for. Dignity is worth dying for. Our children and their children will live in a better galaxy because we were willing to pay the cost." 50 years passed. The galaxy changed in ways no one had predicted. Human ships patrolled trade routes that had once been ruled by Valari warships. Human diplomats mediated disputes that had once been decided by force. Human culture spread across the stars, blending with 100 other traditions to create something new and vibrant. The old hatreds faded slowly. The Valari never forgot their defeat, but their children grew up in a different world. Some of them even became friends with humans. Time healed wounds that had seemed permanent. Admiral Kong Tae-ho, old now gray-haired and slow-moving, visited Yongsang one spring morning. He had become an admiral himself eventually, had led fleets and trained young officers and helped build the peace. Now he was retired like so many others who had fought in the war. He walked to a simple stone monument near the place where the first battle had been fought. Names were carved into the stone, hundreds of them, men and women who had died defending their homes. He read each name slowly, remembering faces, voices, lives cut short. A young alien tourist approached him. She was Valari of all things, her pale skin and dark eyes marking her heritage. She was young, maybe 20 in human years, and she looked at the monument with curiosity. "Excuse me," she said politely. "What is this place? What do these names mean?" Kong looked at her. Once her people had tried to destroy his. Once, he had fought and killed beings who looked just like her. But that was long ago. She was young. She carried no blame for her ancestors' crimes. "This is a memorial," he said gently. "These are the names of people who died in a battle fought here a long time ago." "What were they fighting for?" Kong smiled, though his eyes were wet. They were fighting for their homes, for their families, for the right to live free. He reached out and touched the stone, feeling the carved letters beneath his fingers. They won. The young Valari woman looked at the names for a long moment. Then she bowed her head in respect. "They must have been very brave," she said. "They were," Kong agreed. "They were ordinary people who did extraordinary things because they had no choice. They were afraid, but they fought anyway. They were hurt, but they kept going. They were human." He looked up at the sky, at the stars that humanity had once dreamed of reaching. They had reached them now. They had bled for them, and died for them, and refused to let anyone take them away. "We remember them," he said softly. "We will always remember." That's what the monument means. As long as we remember, they are never truly gone. The sun was setting over Yongsung, painting the sky in shades of gold and red. Admiral Kong stood by the memorial until the stars came out, one by one, filling the darkness with light. Somewhere out there, humanity was still growing, still building, still dreaming. The soft ones who had been pushed too far. The quiet people who had proven that patience and strength were not opposites but partners. They had not wanted war. They had wanted only to live in peace.